5 centuries ago, Magellan reached the Philippines. You can imagine the huge, giant ships reaching the shores of Cebu in 1521, and urban legends say that even if Magellan's ships were already there, they remained unnoticed for several days. And why is that? Well, the legends say that the natives, the Cebuanos, who lived inland, had never experienced a large ship coming from the open sea arriving. So, in their reality, that wasn't real. And if it wasn't real, they can't see it. What's the key point for this example? Well, unless you have seen it before, it is really hard to comprehend and accept. Or, the more you see it, the easier to understand, which is why one of the ways to make communication more effective is to repeat the communication uh, until to the point that acceptance is there and recall is easy. So, this lecture is really a suggestion on what we think is the most effective way to read your textbook. My name is Bong de Ungria from the Ateneo Graduate School of Business, and since you are a fully employed working professional, generally it is expected and understood that you don't have time. So, the most effective way to read your textbook if you don't have time is to read the textbook 3 times. Well, this might be an oxymoron and it might be confusing, but here is what we suggest. Well, the old inefficient way of reading textbook is to read from left to right, word for word, from start to finish, and treat every word and picture as equally important. So we know that's the old way, that's the standard way used by 99% of people. What we suggest is a smart, fast, and high comprehension way, which is as follows. First, read the introduction and summary. And the reason for this is that learning textbooks are not novels, um, which you have to read chronologically. They are more like business reports, where the introduction and summary contain the gist of the most important things about the chapter. So, reading it ahead allows you to get the most important things at the very start. Second, the second read should be a speed read with focus on the first sentences of most, but not necessarily all of the paragraphs, because that is really, again, an intro to the content of the paragraphs. Second, all learning textbooks will have bold or highlighted or italicized text, and this is done to, again, emphasize this over the rest of the words being shown. Third, charts and diagrams are also made because this help in explaining concepts. So normally in your second read, it's highly recommended that you spend a bit of time just looking, scanning all charts and diagrams and pictures included. Now, after the second read, you read it a third time, and it's still a speed read. You don't read word for word, but this speed read is slower than the second, and here you focus on what seems important and skip the rest. So, not all words, not all paragraphs and diagrams are important. You will know. You will know from your second read. Um, and again, your eyes will be directed by the bold or the colored or the highlighted text and charts. Okay, so that's what you focus on your slower but third read. Finally, if you still have time, you can still read it a fourth time, the old way. But I would guess that for any chapter in a reference textbook, um, doing the first, second, and third read would be very efficient And yet, because you're focused on the most important things, uh, the comprehension will be very high. And the first and second read actually is like introducing this Magellan ships to your brain. You may not have heard of it before, or you may not have put it in a structure or relationship before, but the first and second read establishes relationships, concepts, and priorities in your mind without you knowing it. The third read increases comprehension and retention. So there'll be a separate video on a demo of the three times reading recommended for our textbook, but demo of the recommended effective way of reading the textbook three times. So we are in chapter 1 of the 15th edition of Kotler, and again, this is just a demo. So as suggested, the first read, we should focus on the title because that says a lot about what is to come. And there are two parts we should immediately focus on: the introduction, which is basically the learning objectives or the questions that should be answered by the time you've finished reading this reference material three times. So in this chapter, there are six learning objectives or six questions, and that gives you a clue already that these are the more important things that will be discussed in detail for the rest of the chapter. Okay, so I won't read it aloud, but as suggested during the speed read, you don't really look at the other things. No? You just scan through it. You may notice some of the headings, um, re- um, seeing it the first time, some of the figures, but essentially you're trying to rush to the end, which is oops. Okay, so. Again, you're not really interested in reading them. Maybe just the titles, the subtitles, some of the pictures, you know what's there, you know how long this is, holistic concept, you know the diagrams. Um, so again, a very, very speed read where you're not really reading it. You just want to reach the summary, which again will tell us what's the most important things about this chapter. So, okay, so a lot of figures, subtitles. So, building strong brands, those are subtitles: creating, communicating, and delivering value. And voila, you're now in the summary page. Now you read the summary um, the normal way, the old fashioned way, left to right, word for word. And you can even go back as you read each line. Um, and it's not clear the first time, you can go back trying to understand each of the summary statements um, on your first read. Okay, so you saw the five competing concepts when you were going to this page, and now you the importance of this are reinforced in the summary. And basically, these are the seven things that most likely answer the six learning objectives we saw at the very start. So now, if you read this, maybe it took you 5 minutes to get from the intro to the summary. So that comprises the first read. So now we go back. Okay, we go back to the start um, of the chapter, and now you take a slower second read. Okay, so look at the bold again. Read the intro a little slower. Focus on the larger text, the bolded text. Um, the first sentences, again, the value of marketing, marketing decision making. That's all you're reading. You're not reading all of this, although your eyes, whether you like it or not, will see them. So I'm just focusing basically on the picture, the text that are larger, bold, all caps, italicized. Okay, again, without reading it, if your eyes scan it, it is registered in your brain. And a structure is being readied for the third and slow read. So services, events, experiences, persons, places. You're not yet sure how these relate to one another, but it's saying to you, okay, those are important. Who markets. So again, you're not trying to understand, you're just trying to see what's there. And it's also instructive to take a little time to try to understand the diagram. So government, manufacturer, resource, consumer, intermediary markets, not to understand them right away, but to register in your mind, okay, there's something there that the authors seemed considered important enough to make it into a diagram. So this is another diagram. So the industry, a collection of sellers, and market, a collection of buyers. So customer, business, global, non-profit, what are the core marketing concepts? So tables are also very important. So the core concepts are needs, wants, and demands, marketing channels, impressions, marketing environment. What does it mean? You're not interested in that yet. You just, okay, read again. Needs, wants, and demands, target market, because these are the ones in all cap, italicized, or bold. Okay. And again, there's impressions that caught my eye. Again, trying to go quickly to the summary without reading it in too many, using too much time. Okay, so the new marketing realities. Remember, there's technology, globalization, and social responsibility. Okay, so again, looking at the pictures, marketing in practice, marketing balance. So these are samples. Yeah, not trying to read them, just trying to know and put each concept in its place with the objective of reaching the summary and reading it a second time. Okay, so internal marketing, performance marketing, all of that. I'm not even reading this because they're too small, and maybe I'd spend a little time understanding what this diagram is telling me about. And the four A's, which are the equivalent consumer values, um, correlation to the four P's, where this is the traditional and the modern four P's. Yeah, not trying to understand it in detail, just knowing that, okay, there are three major forces, two outcomes, and four pillars. Okay, so again, not sure what this means from the second read, and then again, spend a disproportionate and larger amount of time, this time reading again the summary, because now, because since it's the second and slow read, you've probably seen it at least twice, and you will be having an easier time to comprehend and to put relationships from one concept to the other. So this is the second read. Okay, and after the second read, what you do is go back for the third read, and now still read it slower, not reading everything, that's not necessary, but now there's an objective of trying to link the concepts into a structure that's easy for the learner to recall. Okay, so that's it for the reading three times. And again, if you don't have time, then read it three times. Here, we summarize that the most effective way to read your textbook is not the normal left to right way, because that's very inefficient. If you don't have time, then read your reference textbook at least three times.